We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Paolo, so are you able to think for yourself or are you influenced by Paul Scholes?
I imagine I've been subtly influenced by Paul Scholes over the years. I'm not sure to what extent, but I think I'd like to think I formed my own opinion of Manchester United over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think there's three things that may have influenced you. So tell me whether you believe any of these three things.
Okay.
Number one, Salford City is the greatest football club on the earth. Number two, Oldham is the greatest football club on earth. Or three, United are really boring and Van Gaal is killing the team.
I don't believe any of those things, actually.
No?
No.
Oh dear. Passed and failed the influence test. So anyway, it's not the only talking point of this week, but Van Gaal has been out and firing. He's not happy that the fans have been chanting for United to attack in the last two games against CSKA and West Brom.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, against West Brom, they were very irregular chants, and they weren't. You could hear they weren't being taken up. You know, there was a lot of chants. It was actually a decent atmosphere against West Brom. There was a lot of big supportive chants, and the attack chants were pretty quiet, I thought. Against CSKA Moscow, though, that was a totally different story. That was a very noisy, borderline mutinous crowd. And it's interesting that he cited the influence of Scholes. I think politically it's probably a bit of a mistake for him to say that. I think it's kind of unnecessary to bring that back up and create another news cycle about it, especially after United had just won.
Well, quite, yeah, he should have been talking positives, yeah. We talked about Paul Scholes last week. I mean, there's definitely some nuance to be had in this argument. Not everything that Scholes says I happen to agree with, but on the premise of this United side is a bit soporific, and it, you know, it's too conservative and there aren't enough players attacking and taking risks and not creative enough, then I happen to agree with him. And that Moscow game, I guess we should talk about the Moscow game, was a classic example of that. So United had a lot of possession, but so much of it is going sideways and so much of it is harmless possession. And Van Gaal talks about having to move defensive teams out of shape, and that's very true, but it's very hard to do when you're very one-paced and quite narrow as a team, isn't it?
But to me, like, some of those criticisms apply, but they apply less to that Moscow game than they have to many of our games this season, because, like, Jesse Lingard, every time he got the ball, was kind of running at players out wide, basically.
True, yeah. He was the bright spot in that sense. I mean, you know, we can analyse his performance, and he's pretty wasteful with the ball and not actually very successful with any crosses, or in fact any, except for the assist, which doesn't go down as a cross because it wasn't a cross.
That kind of analysis, though, is like, it's part of what had smoke coming out of my ears at that game a little bit, because here's the crowd going absolutely nuts, calling for the team to attack, and they didn't mean attack. The subtext of this is important, and that's what Van Gaal doesn't seem to have acknowledged at all, because he says we were attacking for 85 minutes of that game, and he's right. We were in possession trying to create chances for 85 minutes of that game, but what the crowd are talking about is the style of attack. And yet when Lingard would lose the ball when he took a man on, you'd have people going, oh, for goodness sake, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, it's the fickle nature of fandom, isn't it? You know, and look, with Lingard, Lingard, he's 22 years old, and he's developed a little more slowly than some other players have, but that's fair enough. And now he's taking his chance in the first team, and he's had 2 decent games, 2 very good games. In the context of being Jesse Lingard, I think in 5 years' time we'll want a lot more out of him than that. But he's been the bright spark over the last 2 games. And to come back to your earlier point, look, these 2 games have been much better than in the last sort of the 3 that came before it.
Yeah.
At least United created chances. 5 shots on target against Moscow. That was 5 times as many as against Crystal Palace. So, that's bonus.
Yeah, and they were real, actual shots as well, unlike that one against Crystal Palace, which should be called a back pass on target if we're being accurate.
Or to give it its technical name, a Rooney.
The Lingard thing, you say we want more from him in 5 years, and maybe you're right, but he got an assist in the CSKA game and the opening goal against West Brom, so the output's there, right? Yeah.
I mean, look, he was not very much involved against West Brom, so it's I guess it's hard to analyse it in the kind of pure terms you'd want to. He just didn't have that many touches, but he's got a goal. I mean, the goal, the quality he showed for the goal he scored against West Brom was more than I suspected he had after seeing him, under 21 level and on loan and in many summer tours and stuff like that. So, awesome quality there to stroke it in on the first touch.
I was a bit surprised when you compared him to Valencia, because that's never been my take on him, that he's that sort of player, because of that, the skill that he showed for that goal seems to be definitely on pre-season tours. We should just name our pre-season tours after Jesse Lingard. He's so good at them. But it was great to see him do that in the first team. And I must confess, I got a tiny bit choked up because there's been all this talk about United's identity and does Van Gaal even care about it? And here he is, Jesse Lingard, kid that's, there's loads of pictures of him as a literal baby in a United top. And he's been at the club since he was 8, and he was trained by Cristiano Ronaldo when Cristiano Ronaldo had straggly blonde bits in his hair. That's how long he's been around.
Yeah, look, and it's great. A young player coming through. We talked earlier in the season about potentially that record of 3,500 and whatever games of an academy player being in the squad perhaps coming to an end, and it doesn't look like it will do.
No.
Because, Lingard has made a breakthrough, and there have been some other young players come through, including Borthwick Jackson, who played against West Brom. So that's positive, and that's the side of the game that Van Gaal is prepared to take risks on. So he's prepared to draft in young players who've really not had any experience. In the case of Borthwick Jackson, pretty much none, other than a few under-21 games this season, and then in the academy before that. So that's the risk-taking. What he isn't prepared to take a risk in is the style of play, right? And so whatever the numbers are, number of shots and all of that, and however much possession United have, and Van Gaal sees that as attacking, it's a strange style of football to bring to United, and a strange style of football for England, really. Pretty much, Arsenal definitely don't play this, even if they play a possession game, and United supporters are translating it differently than Van Gaal has. And I wrote this much earlier in the season. I said Van Gaal has been lost in translation, right? And it's very true, right? And fans are not going to get it because it's very, very different. And it is, soporific, as I said. And until United are able to get enough attacking players with some pace and inventiveness up front, it's going to continue like that because he's not going to change the style. Maybe he recognises that, and that's why Lingard has been drafted in. But something has to happen, because otherwise it's going to be really, really tight from here till the end of the season.
Well, okay, but the flip side of this is he has done something about it. Brought Lingard into the side, moved Martial central for 2 games in a row, even though it didn't work great against Moscow. He stuck with it, and it was much more effective against West Brom.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I mean, totally. He's tried to make a change there. Unfortunately, he hasn't made the big change he needs to, but
he did. We'll come on to that. We will come on to that, because the CSKA game, there was kind of a long period of sound and fury signifying nothing, and there was 2 moments of peak mutiny in the crowd. The one was half time, when people just went absolutely ballistic, screaming attack, 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 which was kind of they're the closest thing they could get to booing the side off the pitch because they realised that, booing the side off the pitch wasn't what they wanted to do, but it was a kind of deep, visceral expression of frustration with the style of play. Then the second one was when people just gave up the subtext when he took Martial off and brought Fellaini on, and the whole ground just filled with boos, which I don't think anyone can remember a time when a substitution was booed at Old Trafford.
No, I mean, I don't really, forever. It just doesn't happen. And that was not pre-planned, and it was instinctive, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
This is a young kid who's done very well for United. He's clearly very high quality. He hasn't scored many goals recently, although he hasn't played up front that much recently either. And, he's exciting. He's a one piece of excitement in the team. Well, not the one, but, he's a major piece of excitement in the team, and people want him in the team. He wasn't having a good game, so in kind of purely logical terms, you can go, well, he wasn't having a good game. Van Gaal's right to change things up. But that game needed United attacking with some pace. Definitely needed that, and because for all that possession, there weren't enough of those really great chances. 5 shots on target in the end, so it just didn't make much logical sense to anybody instinctively, I think, and that's why the boos rang out.
Yeah, absolutely, and then seconds after that, Rooney being moved up front gets an absolutely gilt-edged chance. I have to say I haven't seen it back, but from where I was sat, it looked...
Well, he almost fell over his own feet.
But then, he, as the banter narrative said on Twitter, he proved that form is temporary, but the ability to take 50% of the chances you get from 2 yards out is permanent. And he found the back of the net, and the crowd went absolutely ballistic again, as did Rooney.
Right, yeah. He was about 3 inches from missing that one. Very high into the roof of the net from that unmarked header from about, yeah. But banter narratives being a bit generous there. It's more like 4 yards out.
But yeah, a phenomenal moment of just release all around the ground, and release for Rooney, and ridiculous smugness for Van Gaal. It's like, he was like, see, shouldn't have booed my substitution. We've scored now. Martial wouldn't have scored that. It's like, no, he wouldn't have needed to. We'd have scored the one before. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's... We had a very long rant about Rooney, so we don't need to. He's... Last week.
Yeah, and
we had a very long run.
He's been a little bit... He was okay against West Brom, I thought. We'll come on to that.
We will, because I thought it was quite poor, but we can come on to that. So, what more do we need to say about CSKA? I mean, it's a really important victory.
Yeah,
and it leaves United, I think, 1 victory away. I think that's right. 7 points, so 10. I think pretty much guarantees United qualify for the next round. That's home against PSV in a couple of weeks' time. You'd think United would be favourites to win that one, and so it leaves the away game at Wolfsburg not counting for much. Hopefully,
apart from topping the group potentially, right?
Apart from topping the group, yeah, and I guess that's important. Not that any of us really believe that United are going to go on and win the European Cup.
Oh no, but an easy draw got us to the final in 2011, didn't it? And that wasn't a vintage United side.
Yep. So, I guess so, if we want to keep going on in the competition and all that. So, I guess we'd rather not get Bayern Munich. They were quite good.
They are. Might come on to that as well later. The one thing I would like to say about the CSKA game is it is quite difficult to break down teams that are literally not interested in attacking.
It is, but the best sides do, right? So I knew that.
But we did as well. We did. That's the other thing. We did.
Yeah, 5 shots on target. So I had a mental exercise, right? I thought, well, look, am I being unfair? Is Van Gaal basically, his position is teams don't come and try and attack us, therefore we have to be really patient. Okay, fair enough, But I thought, okay, well, who's the best analogy here? Maybe it's Barca, because they play the same kind of ball retention game plan, sort of, these days. Not quite to the extent that Van Gaal's team does. And I went and had a look at the number of chances they create, and it's basically double the amount United do week on week.
But nobody's arguing we're as good as Barcelona, are they?
No, but it's the system as well, right? It's just the nature of United's passing, and the one-pace nature of it. It just reduces the number of chances. Definitely it does, right? So I made this point on our pre-season pod, right? And I thought it was pretty obvious, to be honest, that if he's going to play this system, where he's either only got one winger in the side, or both wingers want to cut in, basically inside forwards, and it's all a little bit slow, it's going to be really easy to defend. You just pull your fullbacks in and you defend very narrow and very deep, and United are going to be in trouble, right? And you can go and listen to the pre-season pod. I probably said exactly that. It was kind of obvious, and the thing he really needed was a bit more attacking pace in the final third, and sometimes a different game plan.
And he brought Martial to sort out the first. He
did, but he still has no players running from midfield at all. And
that's the big problem with the system. Because the thing about Barcelona is they're playing Messi, Neymar and Suarez up front. Messi's out, but it's a different stratosphere of talent,
right,
than United's current front three.
Sure, but they don't play two holding players.
No, absolutely, and this is the kind of key to it.
And I tell you what, they wouldn't play two holding players against West Brom at home.
No, you could make a generous argument to Van Gaal that Schweinsteiger isn't exactly a holding midfielder, but borderline somewhere. He didn't play Schneiderlin and Carrick, did he? Interestingly, Carrick, who I think I was pretty critical of on last week's podcast, I think has had two really good games back to back. Is really important against Moscow and really important again against West Brom. Really almost like a bit of the good Carrick coming back. It's been a while since we've seen him. Really sensible use of the ball, really kind of forward
more than 100
thinking.
passes.
Yeah, but almost like at the moment with United side, if someone isn't getting 100 passes, it's like you have to look at it and go, well, you've not been trying, have you? Clearly.
David De Gea, 99. No, that's not acceptable, son.
Chris Smalling, of course, brilliant again against Moscow, called Mike again by Van Gaal.
Michael this time.
Michael, yeah, it was Michael this time. But that moment because that was at 0-0, and Doumbia, who was a big miss for Moscow in the first half. Apparently he's had a slight knock, but he hit the shot which De Gea managed to parry. The ball fell to Doumbia. Ashley Young just totally lost his footing, and then I'm watching it going, oh no, we're going to lose this game, and then suddenly Chris Smalling appeared to materialise out of thin air.
Yeah, I mean, at first it looked like Ashley Young had managed to block it when falling over. I think he got into the box and the ball's coming at him. He just instinctively fell over.
He's a disgrace.
Yeah, well, yes, he is.
He's not a disgrace. And Roy Keane, he is a Man United player, Bailey.
Well, yeah, literally, he is. Yes, he has a contract with Manchester United. I don't know, maybe disgrace is a strong word, but it's kind of embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not ideal. But he hasn't done it for ages. He's clearly been trying.
Not hard enough, son.
No. So, yeah, but then just Chris Smalling, again, brilliant. And he was brilliant again against West Bromwich. It's every week. He's just brilliant. And this is very nice to see. I mean, you said the Lingard performance needs a bit of analysis, but he got man of the match afterwards, and I think it was totally deserved that he got man of the match. And it was really interesting because in more ways than one, he really represented Manchester United in the old school sense. First of all, he's an academy player, and since a tiny age, he's a local lad, all that kind of stuff. But then just prepared to take risks to get the ball to run at people, to hit crosses into the box, to just, to constant, as he said in himself in his post-match interview, he just wants to do things to try and get the crowd out of their seats.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. So he's the one player who's trying to do that, right, in that game, or, the main player who's trying to do that. So in that sense, the man of the match award is fair enough. I mean, the quality wasn't always there, but he's the one player taking on players and putting crosses in. And that was important. United need that.
And if you've got someone taking on players and putting crosses in, it's not always going to work. You have to be prepared. You have to accept failure if you're going to demand risk.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's interesting because you look at Jesse Lingard and you look at him as a classic player that Van Gaal might not like very much because of his wastefulness with.
But he loves him, doesn't he? He absolutely loves him.
Apparently he does. Yeah. I mean, if you gave Angel Di Maria those stats, you might be going, look how much he wastes the ball.
Yeah, but then I'd be on the other end of that going, yeah, but he's the one that was trying and the one that made the telling difference. So
and a balanced team has both of these things, and it's United definitely need it. And whatever happens with Lingard right now, he's he's the best option, definitely, because Depay is nowhere near the team, and he had his short cameo and was awful. Launched one into the stands, didn't he? So
he's going to have such a good season next season.
Let's hope so, and let's hope he.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Stops partying and stops being obsessed with Instagram and dressing like a Peruvian panpipe player.
It's such a strong look. I don't know, all these old people dissing Memphis' amazing Peruvian panpipe look. It's like, yeah, just jealous because you're not young. Also, I'm sure at his age we both put together some pretty dodgy ensembles, Ed.
Nothing that bad.
You say bad. I think you mean awesome. Anyway, talking of awesome, Man United against West Bromwich Albion. No, after the CSKA Moscow game, I was lucky enough to go into the mix zone and had a quick chat with the man who got a little cameo in that game and a slightly longer cameo against West Brom. I asked Ander Herrera how it felt to have his name sung from the stands. How does it feel when the fans are chanting for you, when they want you to come on?
They show me every day their support. I am very thankful, and they give me the strength to keep fighting, to keep playing as good as possible and giving everything for this club.
I definitely love you.
Thank you.
Very good.
I tried to have a word with Rooney. He wouldn't talk to me. I don't think it's because he knew who I was.
It would be good if he did know who you were and wouldn't talk to you because of it.
Yeah, that would be good.
That would be quite good. In fact, we'd have to get a little ident done. Rankcast, not listened to by Wayne Rooney.
I thought I was like, it would be super unprofessional here to ask Ander Herrera to say, this is Ander Herrera, you're listening to the Rankcast. So I did not do that.
Well, you're going to have to in one of your episodes into the press box.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah, it was kind of interesting to be in the mix zone because it's not something I've done before, because it's a Champions League thing really, rather than do it at league games. And just a very peculiar thing where the players just walk past a load of journalists, and some of them stop and chat and others don't stop and chat, but they still have to go past them to get out. I asked Anthony Martial for a word in French, but he wouldn't talk to me.
Rude. Don't like him anymore. Well, no.
No, he was dead polite about it. And to be honest, like, if I was them, I wouldn't want to talk to me after I've just played a really complicated football match.
Very good. Well, that was CSKA, brighter than the three previous games, and then on to West Brom. A little brighter still.
Yes, absolutely. Another game where the opponents had no interest in attacking. Van Gaal afterwards saying perhaps the fact that these two results have come back to back will make coaches think they might have to try a different tactic.
No, it won't, and because sometimes that tactic still works.
Yeah.
And it's the best tactic to play against United right now because we're so slow in the final third. But we put the pressure on, sort of. I obviously watched the game, and then afterwards I was thinking, geez, that really could have been 0-0 in the end. Could have been another one. It could have been 5 in a row, really, given that CSKA Moscow wasn't far off being that as well. And then when checked all the stats, not too many 3 shots on target. Actually, 36% of the game played in the West Brom third, which is not bad for any. If you go check the stats out, that's higher than normal. But there's just this kind of sense that maybe we're being kind of a bit, there's some rose-tinted glasses about the Fergie era, but there's a sense that a Fergie team would have gone for the throat there, and this team just doesn't do that.
I mean, I think a Fergie team would have struggled to break that team down and then eventually got a fairly unexciting 2-0 win. I think that's most likely what would have happened. It's like that. We built a lot of league titles on slightly uninspiring 2-0 home victories. Not the same sort, but, the same kind of ultimate outcome. I think such a big part of our problem as a team is, and such a big part of the frustration is just like lack of execution in the final third. It's such a huge part of the problem because you do all this build-up play and it does take longer to get the chances to develop. But then when the chance is missed or the final ball is fluffed, it does become even more frustrating because there's been such a long build-up to it.
But that's the other thing, right? Because United play in one way all of the time, there's almost no open space. And there's no broken play either, right? This is not a team that's going to attack on the break unless they hit a long ball out to Anthony Martial in the channel, right? And that's really the only time that ever happens. And that's just so easy to defend against, and there aren't enough angles in the final third that United have a lot of through balls. There just aren't, right? Against any team. So I think there's a way to go. I think there's an assumption that Van Gaal he's got the defensive bit right, he'll get the attacking bit right. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, right? Because at the moment it's not kind of clicking together in that way, and he's had 18 months at the club. Big Russell there, you moved something.
He's had 18 months at the club, but that doesn't mean he should have fixed everything. Like, he's had 18 months at the club, totally rebuilt the squad, got them incredibly well organised. So those are two big factors. And the attacking side isn't right. I don't think... Well, if by what you mean by is he going to get the attacking side right, are we going to play a fantastic dynamic possession football in the final third and score tons of goals from it? I'm not convinced that's what is going to happen. But is he going to get the attack right that much more often than not we win these games where we've got 70% of possession and the other team comes to just defend? That, I think he's got a reasonable chance of getting the attack right. And some of the personnel changes have meant that, Martial being there is a huge factor. He was just incredible against West Brom. Didn't score but did win the penalty, and almost certainly would have scored if he hadn't been taken out. But just, so he's this huge threat. So I think in that sense, I don't know, it just feels like Van Gaal's getting a huge amount of criticism, a good deal of it warranted, but there is this kind of sense that that there isn't this acceptance that what he has actually done is actually a big achievement,
Yeah, sure it is, United have scored 17 goals. Chelsea in 16th have scored 16 goals. The only thing that is keeping United in Champions League contention is the fact that he's created a really good and sound defence. Just 8 goals conceded in the Premier League this season. That's the only thing. So that's a big achievement, right? He's keeping United in contention. But on every count, that in terms of the attacking football, United are in the bottom half of the table. Shots on target, chances created, number of passes in the final third. It's just every attacking stat. United are really far down there, right? And the fans at Old Trafford might not be looking through pages and pages of Stat Zone and Stato and who scored and and Opta data and all of that kind of stuff, but they know instinctively that there's something not quite right about this United side, and they know that instinctively when he's playing 2 holding midfielders every week. However you class Schweinsteiger, he's not a number 8 anymore, and because he's not bursting ahead of the ball. And another problem. But so there maybe he'll fix it. Maybe he'll fix it. I don't know. The more negative of Van Gaal watchers who saw him build sides at Barcelona and Bayern Munich keep saying, I told you so, basically. And, his teams just play a bit like this. And maybe they'll just be better, right? And we're heading towards some of the better Jose Mourinho sides at Chelsea, where they were pretty functional but scored a lot of goals.
This notion of are we going to click? Is there more to come? And I certainly think there's more to come in terms of quality in the final third. I think that's pretty evident. And actually, I think there's been a few signs of that here and there. We keep going on about this, but we went for his extended stretch where he scored 3 goals every other game, and we're not far off that against West Brom. Although, to be honest, we were lucky to get 2. But, this notion, because you mentioned in contention for Champions League places, obviously that's the realistic target. We're also 2 points off the top again, because everyone else around us dropped points this week. And it is kind of frustrating because you think, well, if this was a proper vintage United side, we'd be absolutely walking the league this season. But I think the defensive thing, this time last year, our defenders couldn't look at each other without falling over and conceding a goal. So there's a completely different structural integrity to the team, and then the problem is the final third is not effective and is quite dull. But we've just won 2 games on the bounce playing this kind of football. you know. And I think you said this last week, like Van Gaal will get away with this as long as the results are okay.
Yeah, and he's got a good run coming up. You know, it's Watford after the international break, and then PSV, and then Leicester and West Ham will be tough. But then you look at December, and it's not so bad. You know, United should be in contention by the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be other frustrating games and other difficult games. The couple of little highlights about the West Brom game, I mentioned the Martial performance. The take where I think it was in the first half, he takes it on his he takes it on his right and sets up a shot for his left, or the other way round. But
right.
It just
saved. Yeah, there's one of 3 United shots on target. The other 2 being the goal and the penalty.
But just a few little moments of absolutely sumptuous brilliance from Martial. You're
totally right. I mean, he's got everything as a player, as we've said, and those moments kind of. He might not have scored very many recently, but that's another frustration. Sorry, but why? What kind of mental breakdown do you have to move that guy out of being your central striker and ship him onto the wing, you know, so Rooney can play out front? Doesn't make any sense. So hopefully that doesn't happen again this season.
Yeah, he's tried it, and to try and get something out of Rooney, I guess. So Rooney was taken off, and I quite literally, this is not an exaggeration, when the guy held up his number, I sat pretty much right behind it, and I just went it was like a genuine gasp of shock that had happened. And what I put it down to is that Rooney had an okay game. I'm not saying he was brilliant. I'm saying I would say that's probably the best game he's had as in terms of overall performance since Bruges.
No, it's not saying much. I mean, he
not saying
made one successful pass into the box. He's United's number 10, and I don't know. That's enough, really. So the way I'd characterise the way he played against West Brom, he looked like he was Michael Carrick playing at number 10. Right, so he got the ball and he knocked it sideways. And that's it. That's all he did.
But all I'm saying is, when he got the ball, it didn't bounce 20 yards off him. And when he tried to find another United player, more often than not, by a big margin, it went to another United player. And those 2 basics, even when he has been playing like that, have not been the case of late.
No, how low our expectations have sunk.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah, I think he got an 8 in Dream Team.
So funny. It's just... But anyway... clearly he is no world beater at the moment, but as you said earlier, we don't need to go on another big rant about Rooney, but all I'm saying is I think that's why he was taken off, because he wasn't abysmal. So it's like Van Gaal doesn't want to destroy his confidence. And of course the substitution bore brilliant fruit, because West Brom were more kind of open after they went 1-0 down. West Brom were an absolute disgrace, though, in that game. Time wasting at 0-0 from 20 minutes in. They took a player off at 1-0, and he just kind of really slowly strolled off the pitch. It's like, you're time wasting at 1-0 down now, you know, right? But then they did have this incredibly good chance for Berahino.
Right, yeah.
Late on, which... it's just pure luck that he didn't score that from a United perspective.
Yeah, amazing that he didn't score. That would have changed the scope of the game completely, 1-1. Absolutely. So, two other things to say about West Brom. Fletcher bursting through 2 United players and into the final third. I was like, okay, he looks a bit tasty. And then Johnny Evans, he had a good game.
Oh my God. He did, but... there was this moment in the first half where I was like, oh, I'm really glad that Martial running at Evans isn't some other team playing against us. You know, it's nice that like Johnny Evans played for the team, but, you know, he did a good job, Evans did. He's never been a bad player.
No, he's never been a bad player. Was once one of the top 5 central defenders in the world.
I think performances like yesterday show exactly why.
You're visionary there, Paul.
Yeah, clearly. No, it's brilliant to see Darren Fletcher always, because he's a superhero.
Every minute of this season, Fletcher's played.
He's a superhero. The man is a superhero. There's no other explanation for it.
He basically should be dead.
Yeah, but instead he plays every minute for a Tony Pulis side.
Very good. Well, there you go. Look, 2 victories. So yeah, we can analyse in depth the the performances, and it's still not what we want. But that's 2 victories, and that's it's positive momentum behind United, much more positive momentum than there are at Chelsea. Maybe even City, drew at the weekend, and Arsenal drew as well. So there you go. We're moving.
We are. I mean, just very quickly before we totally finish on the West Brom game, the ball from Herrera to Martial, the run from Martial, shows what we can do if we ever do get the opportunity to counter-attack. And Herrera's on the pitch, like those things. And then Mata's penalty, he's very committed to keeping himself on penalties, isn't he? He
is, and it's a good job that the keeper dived out of the way. Otherwise, he'd looked very silly with that one. Herrera. He's not a natural number 10. He just doesn't seem to play like. He doesn't play like, say, Mesut Ozil, who's having the best season of his life. I wouldn't say he's a natural number 10. He's more like an 8.5, right? And but what he does that no other player in the United midfield does is get the ball and move it really quickly. He speeds up the game and with some real accuracy, and he does break ahead of the ball. It's just as mental as it is to move Martial out of the striking position to the left wing. It's mental to not have Herrera in this side. This United side desperately needs Herrera in it.
Yeah, you'll get no argument from me, a man who quite literally made a puppet of Ander Herrera this week.
If you haven't seen that, this is on the Maxit YouTube channel. You'll find it on Paul's Twitter feed at UTD Rantcast. It's a mix of puppets, some interesting accents.
Superb accents. I think.
Well, they are all superb. It kind of Wayne Rooney as Jan Mulby. Slightly threw me, that one. Slightly. And when Robert Mugabe came into it, I was like, what?
See, I'm just being insulted now. This is what's happening.
No, but it's because you lived in that part of the world, so you hear Spanish as a Zimbabwean accent. I think. No, he's deeply offended now. He's going to walk off the pod. That's it. That's the mic's gone. He's off. It's very good. It's very entertaining.
It's easily the stupidest thing I've ever done, and you can check it out on the Umaxit YouTube channel. They asked me to do it. To be fair, to be honest, they didn't exactly ask me to do that, but that's what happened. Anyway, so please check that out.
I thought it was kind of ironic in a way that you were asked to do a take on when United were good in the mid-90s, and you did the internet version of the mid-90s.
So when I say watch it, what I mean is if you like really silly stuff, watch it, and if you don't like silly stuff, don't watch it, because it's really silly. So United are winning again, which is fantastic. Not 2 vintage performances, but 2 better performances. We're still keeping clean sheets. It's now been 555 minutes since United have conceded a goal, which is absolutely extraordinary. In fact, let's do some Twitter questions. At Eddie Rose 13 says, will United ever concede again?
Never, no. Yes, United will concede again. And it will quite possibly come in the next game, who knows. But at the moment, very, very, very strong in defence.
Here's a really interesting question. I think it speaks to what you were talking about, Ed. At Don McDowell says, what's the perfect combination in midfield? I'm not feeling the 2 holding midfielders. Surely a 3 would be better.
Yeah, so I think the natural move for Van Gaal is to play 4-3-3, just with the balance of the players he's got. There's no room for Rooney in a 4-3-3, of course. I was going to say, at Datarant, we forget people's real names in the world of Twitter. Jay, who does the data stuff on United Rant, wrote a very good piece about how Van Gaal is trying to accommodate Rooney into his team at the moment. Looked at some data around that. And I think that's right. And his argument was that United need to shift to 4-3-3, and I think he's right there too.
Yeah, absolutely. At Happy Hero with a very difficult question. What Star Wars character best represents Louis van Gaal? I'm slightly worried at the moment that it's someone transitioning from the light side to the dark side of the Force, because, he's gone from playing this gorgeous free-flowing total football to a kind of increasingly functional and depressing brand of football as he's got older. But maybe there'll be a glorious redemption at the end of it. He'll be Darth Vader in a good way.
Yeah, well, at least he's not David Moyes, because David Moyes was Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, Moisey's about to get sacked if he hasn't already been.
Yeah, he's been in the job 41 games, made it to 42 games, made it to 51 at United. So I don't know, it'd have a nice kind of symmetry if they gave him another 9 games, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you'd give David. He's in theory there's definitely a level at which he can do a good job. He proved that with Everton for years.
Yeah, I see the future and I see the championship.
Oh dear. He's Premier League Manager of the Year 3 times or something.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment there's not obviously a team, but someone gets sacked, don't they?
Yeah.
So he'll get another job back in England. Of course he will.
Yeah. Okay, at Gary_1105 says, do you think Van Gaal really gets the fans?
No, I don't, and I think I'm not sure whether in my long ramble earlier I made that clear. I don't think he gets it because I think the fans have an expectation that's different, and Van Gaal is not understanding the root cause of their problem, right? So to blame Scholes and say effectively United fans are sheep following Scholes and they don't really know what they're talking about is the wrong answer, right? So and I've tweeted this a few times, and it's very hard in 160 characters to put this eloquently, but I think Van Gaal needs to acknowledge the problem, and he thinks possession is attacking. United fans don't think that, and it's a really broad brush to paint, but I think this is the underlying problem, right? So when United have the ball and it's going sideways in the final third, Van Gaal's doing that to try and move the opposition around, right? But because there's no real pace in the final third, and we don't have a proper number 10 who can play those balls, not much is happening, and fans just are frustrated with that. Lost in translation.
I would say that a couple of things. So first of all, I think the no number 10 is a much bigger problem than the lack of pace currently. So there is actually quite a lot of pace in our front line now, but the passing's a bit one tempo because of the number 10 problem and the 2 holding midfielders problem, right? You solve both of those with Herrera, or either of them with Herrera. The other thing is I think the lost in translation thing is a big problem, not just in terms of the football, but in terms of what Van Gaal says and how it's interpreted. So he was extremely positive about the fans in that press conference. Like he said, I've said this repeatedly, and in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I believe he is being sincere when he says this. He says this is a group of fans unlike any he's known. Unlike Barcelona fans, unlike Bayern fans, they are a unique, the best group of fans he's ever worked with. That's his take on it, and I do believe he's being sincere about that. Not that somehow United fans are magical and special or whatever, but just there is a kind of bond between United fans and their manager that you don't necessarily get everywhere because we had Fergie so long and Busby for so long and all that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, that may be true, but what I think when he then makes comments about the fans need to have a think whether they should be yelling, I think the problem is he then makes all the stuff he says about how great the fans are sound like it's a bit of a brush off, right? And it's a bit insincere. And then out comes what he really thinks, which is you should shut up because you don't get it. So, and I'm not saying that's true, but that is kind of how it makes it sound and comes out sometimes.
Exactly, and that's the thing. This is the thing. I think it's kind of partly a problem of presentation because he also said, and this is where I think he really does get the fans. He also says what I know the fans think is that we should be better attacking against teams who are parking the bus. He didn't say it in so many words, but that is almost exactly what he didn't say parking the bus, but he said, I believe that the fans think we should be better against teams that come to sit defending against us. And yeah, he also said, I think that the fans should have a think about when they're yelling attack, attack, attack when we are attacking. But I also don't think he's totally wrong about that. I think you can totally understand the frustration. You can totally, from the fans' perspective, you can see that what the subtext of what they're saying actually is. But I can see Van Gaal's perspective of that too. Nuance, isn't it? Middle ground and all that.
Yeah, there's no room for that on the internet.
or in football stadiums, apparently. At Soskia 1878 says 5 Cantonars, United win, Chelsea, Liverpool, City and Arsenal dropping points, Rooney subbed, has Christmas come early?
Well, maybe. Yeah, apparently so, because, November turns the 1st of November and out come all the Christmas decorations and shopping and stuff like that. So, yeah.
United had their Christmas party on the 5th of November.
Right, yeah.
Which, at the time, I was slightly concerned is just because Van Gaal loves Christmas so much, he's just worried he's going to be sacked by Christmas and not get to go to the Christmas party. It's like, right.
No, it's super, super early, and but I guess that's the only time they could fit it in.
Yeah, fixtures and all that around Christmas. And Amun Pal Man says, is it too early for 5 Cantonars? Brackets, it's never too early in my opinion. Listen, if it was up to me, 5 Cantonars would be the 1st of December, but when the nip is in the air and the clocks go back, that's when 5 Cantonars gets an airing, and it's very cheery. Of all the early Christmas things, it's the most acceptable in my opinion. And now, we've talked about this subject in general quite a lot, but there's just something specific I wanted to say about this, which is at Patrice Marrow saying, why doesn't LVG just play one central defensive midfielder against teams where our personnel as a whole are better? And like, I think we all want him to stop doing that, but I do think the reason why is just that he's prizing defensive solidity above everything at the moment, because it's our biggest strength and he's trying to play to our biggest strength. And I think it's a mistake. Yeah, but that's why I think he's doing it.
I think that's exactly what he's doing, and it comes across as extremely conservative. Perhaps the fans should be shouting defence, 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 or we go all basketball and go defence.
At AKA Uncle Stephen, friend of the show, says Herrera or Mata.
I'd have both.
Yeah, me too. If I had to have one. No, it's like
no, you don't have to have one. Mata should play at 10.
Yeah.
Herrera should play at 8
and a half.
And a half. Yeah, he'd play another holding midfielder.
Yeah.
And then once Memphis is back in form, he can play on the left, and Ashley Young and Jesse Lingard can fight it out for the right wing spot. Martial's up front.
Yeah, which leads us nicely to the question by I go many names at this time surely, who says, would 4-3-3 solve all our problems or only the ones I can think of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly. There's a transfer window question, but no way are we doing those before December the 1st.
Come on. Yeah, no. Much like Christmas should not start before December, neither should the transfer window talk.
And Liz Moore, friend of the Rantcast, at Liz Worsley, says, what is the obsession with short corners? We used to be amazing at set pieces, but what's happened? Now, we used to be amazing at set pieces. There is a heck of rose-tinted spectacles, because for the last 5 years of Alex Ferguson's Man United career, we were a total disaster from set pieces after Ronnie left.
So the pattern of a corner now is, get the corner, don't win very many either, by the way, 2 against West Brom, and get the corner and pass it short and then work it very, very slowly back into midfield and then recycle it around midfield a few times.
No, it's worse than that. Like, they're knocking it back to Blint every time, and Blint's putting an outswinger in from the left every time they get a corner on the left, and I don't understand why they're not mixing it up, except for then when they do mix it up, they hit the first man. So it's like, okay, well, fair enough. Why doesn't Blint just take the corners? I don't get it.
I don't know. He's got to do better than Rooney.
Yeah. When I was very confused when we went 1-0 up and Van Gaal immediately sent Phil Jones out to warm up, I was like, oh God. So he's just a parody of himself at this point. But he obviously put him on for Ashley Young, which was pretty sensible, really. But somebody joked, it's to improve the quality of our set-piece delivery.
Yeah, very good.
So it's an international break coming up. I don't know what's going on. I haven't even looked at this. Are there friendlies as well as the playoffs, or is it just the playoffs?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag of European Championship qualifiers. So people like the Republic of Ireland are playing Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah, it's the playoffs, isn't it?
Playoffs, yeah. A bunch of friendlies. So England, for example, are away at Spain. France versus Germany looks a bit tasty. Could be good. Belgium. I know, in relative terms. It's been the basis
of a number of conflicts, France and Germany looking a bit tasty over the years.
It has also. On this Remembrance Sunday, yes, we should remember the fighting that happens between France and Germany. Well, no, to be honest, because your fellow cheese-eating surrender monkeys, countrymen, because Paul's French, by the way.
I'm as German as I am French, of course.
Never really did much fighting.
No. Outrageous. Hey, listen, my grandparents fought in the resistance, I'll have you know, and by fought I mean smuggled butter across the border of the Vichy France into liberated France, the other way around.
I like a French butter, you know, one of those president butter in the kind of expensive ones. They're all right. Yeah. Very good. That's about as good as it gets for international football, I think, talking about butter.
Yeah, we like butter. That's what we've decided. Obviously, all the United lads will be in action, most of them. It'd be fascinating to see what Roy Hodgson does with Wayne Rooney, because presumably there's no way he could have it in his contract that he has to play for England. So it'd be really interesting to see. He cannot possibly pick Rooney on form.
No, well, I mean, you know, Jamie Vardy has to be in the side on form, although he played out on the wing last time, didn't he, for England? And then Harry Kane seems to have come back into some form after a difficult start to the season. And, you know, he's got to lead the line for England. And I guess the question then is, does Rooney play sort of just behind him?
You could play Kane behind Vardy, potentially. Kane's pretty neat on the ball and good hold-up play and all that stuff. Play a 4-4-2. Mike Bassett, England manager and all that.
Andorra are playing St Kitts and Nevis. That kind of game really makes me wonder who thought up that fixture and just how much of a backhander is going on. I mean, clearly, look, this is like some money-washing scheme, obviously.
Listen, international football is totally clean. This has been proven time and again. It hasn't, has it? What has been proven is that international friendlies are not interesting. International tournaments are wonderful, and I guess we'll probably do podcasts in Euro 2016, right? But the build up to them is not good. Big things at stake though in the playoffs. United players are involved in that.
All right, well that's all we've got to say on the international break. High quality segment of the show there. And after the international break, there's some actual real football, and United go to Watford. So are we doing a podcast next week and we can preview Watford then?
Yes, but just in case we don't for some reason.
All right, so Watford play a lot of long balls basically, and then not that good, but they're probably doing okay enough to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah,
looks like it anyway.
The problem with this game is that Watford are pretty well organised defensively, so it could be another long afternoon, really, because I don't think they're going to play particularly flowing football, even though they're at home. I think they'll put a lot of people behind the ball. We'll have to find a way to break through.
I think they will do, and they'll knock long balls up to Troy Deeney, which is the way they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. United have not been knocking long balls through to anyone, really, apart from the flanks.
No, they play the ball down the channel for Martial to chase. So, yeah, they're about 10 or 11% long balls. God. You see, my brain is full of these stats. I should stop reading all these stats things because, you know, it's as Alexi Sale said many years ago, when a piece of information comes into your head, inevitably something else falls out.
Yes,
and so I will forget like my, you know, Miss Rant's face or something for some inane stat about Watford's under-16 side.
Yeah, it's talking of young players, we didn't really mention this, but Cameron Borthwick-Jackson making his debut, a real surprise and a wonderful one.
Right, real surprise in that, you know, he's hardly played for the under-21s either. So, I mean, he's been in the under-21s this season, but it's his first season in the under-21s and mostly played at centre-back through his sort of academy career and mixed it up in the under-21. So, yeah, very, very good on him, and he did all right.
Have you watched that, talking of United young players, did you watch that Salford documentary in the end?
I still have not watched it. I will get around to it, but I still have not.
The bit where Phil Neville organises a move for one of their young lads to United and he gets a contract is pretty moving, and seeing Phil Neville's excitement and that was quite sweet, I thought. He sort of came across quite well, Phil Neville did, out of that documentary.
He does. He's all right. Seems like a nice chap.
And then Salford played on telly.
And they won.
And scored an absolute wonder goal.
It was, yeah, absolute wonder goal, and quite a few people rightly saying, could we sign him up?
Yes. All right, that's enough Rantcast. Thank you for listening. You know where to find us if you need us, and we will be back either during or after the international break. Have a good one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.